preliminary match. In the bottom right, we do have Creator. And in the top left, it is INnoVation. You'd think I would have made sure to get around to this as fast as possible, but like I said, with all the moving and figuring stuff out and getting everything organized and set up, I didn't get around to it, unfortunately. Plus, we had the ESL casts, which are literally 9 hours long, so I surprisingly did not feel like casting directly after that on Thursday and Friday. I will be back on the ESL stream, not this week, but the next week. Towards more, I guess, the playoffs. But you think I would have gotten here as fast as possible, and I really would have loved to, because I am very interested in seeing how INnoVation does. He was my favorite player, and I got to catch at least one of his best of threes in an Open Cup, and he looked good. Obviously not as great as he once was, but now we're in the GSL. It's been a couple of weeks later, and I want to see if he's still up to form. In the top left, it is INnoVation. In the bottom right, we have Creator. And Creator at this point is, he's old stuff. We don't even really talk about him. We really need to talk about him. I guess we kind of do. Creator is such a sweetheart. He is a sometimes poor, unfortunate soul. It feels like he's not unlucky like Solar, but it does feel like Creator can only really start to play his best when he's already on the ropes, so that whatever mistake he makes while he's on the ropes ends up being game ending, right? So he doesn't do so well the first two series in a best of 5, the first two games in a best of 5, but then he starts to bring it back, and you're like, oh my god, Creator's doing it. And then game 5 will occur, and he'll mess up with a bad recall. and then it's just game over, because he waited till game 3 to actually turn it on. That's kind of been Creator, so it's like so close yet so far, is I feel like Creator's motto, which isn't a great motto to have, but that's what I'm sticking with. Thank you, Dragon Power, for that gifted sub. So, I always hope good things for Creator, but he is up against one of my all-time favorites players. So, I will be a little biased against him. INnoVation did go for a factory expand and a high ground command center, playing it very safe. Creator did go for a Simon X4 Nexus, so no big deal there. His probe's been kind of moving around suspiciously, but I think it is just... Well... No, it's not patrolling. Moving around, it could have been scouting. Like, it could have been scouting a starport right here, which is probably exactly what it was doing. But now... Oh, no, it's actually just going to go back in. I was... like, still waiting. Is it going to be suspicious? But he really is sending it back in to check the command center timing. He won't be able to see it in the natural. He's going to have to send that probe into the high ground to confirm that his opponent's not one base all-inning him. It's not really popular at all to one base TVP. So Creator could default assume it was a high ground command center, but I'd be a little scared, And it's INnoVation. And INnoVation is a macro guy, all right? Like, if you weren't around 3 or 4 years ago, so you're just, like, literally asking who is INnoVation, first of all, hello, sweet child. I'm so glad he found StarCraft 2. Second of all, INnoVation was the macro of macroers. He would only do cheeses because he, like, begrudgingly had to admit that to be a professional gamer, you had to throw in something unique and different. Otherwise, he was, like, 3CC all the time. So it's probably at, coming back from the military and kind of having a fresh start. He might have differed his style a little bit, especially as probably a lot of Korean Terrans were telling him, hey, be wary of early Protoss aggression. They're getting savage nowadays. So he's playing it quite safe. Which, when you play a factory expand, it is safe, but then, of course, it could also send out perhaps a faster Widowmine drop, which exactly is happening. So Creator, he planned on a pylon just to be annoying, and then actually wanted to try and stop the command from really being able to land. This is a lot of resources and attention diverted to an inevitability, in my opinion, because I do think it is inevitable, unless Creator was proxy gating. Now, Creator is doing something cheesy. We'll get into that in a second. First, Widowmine's going to get 1 probe. Second and third. Actually, was that 2 somehow? Huh? I don't know. But oh! Okay, that almost lined up on these probes over here. But the thing that Creator is doing is being a cheeky DT rusher. So I kept on saying that probe was suspicious. That did not end up slapping down the Dark Shrine. That was just put up at home. And technically, INnoVation did see it. Did he click on it? Maybe not, but he has a Raven anyways. So even if he's not aware DT is right there, I think he is. He is indeed. This is a proper reaction to a scouted Dark Shrine. And as one of Exilius too, one of mines I could go back in, by the way. So far, not so good for Creator, my dude. I don't know if he's going to be able to finagle his way out of this one. INnoVation is perhaps still a little rusty. And it was only 2 months ago. I swear to God, it was only 2 months ago. Someone go and find the interview with Stats. Someone commented that INnoVation was out of military. And then someone asked Stats, like, oh, he said he wasn't going to play StarCraft 2 again. And Stats laughed and said, we'll see next, like, tomorrow or something like that. Basically saying INnoVation changes his mind often. So INnoVation comes out of military saying he's not even going to play StarCraft 2 again. And then he's like, well, I'll play in an Open Cup. Well, I'll play in the GSO qualifiers. Okay, well, I'll play StarCraft again. Apparently. So I don't know what that tells you about how seriously he's been practicing. But he seems all right so far. Thank you very much. Rooftop is dead for the $10. Happy belated birthday. Thank you. So, DT Rush not really working out. I feel like Creator's not the only Protoss trying to make this faster DT Plink work, but I mean, I love the upgrade and I do it myself, but I do it because I'm bad and my opponents are bad. So far, I have not been convinced by what is effectively a 2-base DT Blink opener from Creator. You know, third Nexus is not even done. And it's hardly a worthwhile upgrade even if you are on 3 bases. It's definitely more of a 4-base plus late-game PvT upgrade. It just is a decent amount of resources dedicated to no guarantee. The DTs really have no guarantee. Archons have almost a guaranteed kill on a couple of Marines, you know, if you do the Archon drop follow-up. But DTs are not a guarantee, and adding Blink onto them does not, I feel like, add a guarantee when you're on 2 bases, when you're up against a 2-base Terran. Like, what is Blink going to help with here? They're going to help escape. But then overall, you still have sunk a lot of resources into the DT building, the DT Blink, and then the actual DTs, which again have so far not done anything. INnoVation playing it pretty freaking safe, waiting until, of course, his upgrades are actually finishing before moving out, having his Viking patrolling for the Warp Prism at home. Now, the DTs will be able to enter into the main without a Warp Prism, which is something that INnoVation is probably not anticipating. But is that going to be enough damage? Speaking of damage, Widowmine drop did commence once again. Auto turrets also in the naturals, so Creator pulled home, at least with some of his army, some of his spotting army, but the DTs do blink into that main base, and that is the damage that Creator was looking for. No one expects the DT blink in. Classic used it once in the BlizzCon, and now we're going to see it again. But you can't actually kill a command center so much. They can always lift, right? So 60 NTVs go down, but what does Creator have as far as army goes? I mean, this is the big problem, right? The DTs did end up getting the damage done, but then, you know, they can't be used as an army, as much as I try to make them usable. Oh, the recall on the 3rd base was ambitious. That was ambitious. And the Archons, not recalled, die. Creator is also going to die. There's just no 2 ways about it. This ends up being a relatively simple game overall. Even though the threat of the base race with DT's Blink, you know, it's sketchy, you know. There's been some wild games in StarCraft when it comes to base trades. This actually was relatively simple for INnoVation. DT Blink might not be that much of a cost, but then adding on that many DTs, 6, right? Plus 1 that died, I guess, so 7 in total DTs. That's a real hiccup in your good army. DTs are not a part of your army. Archons, yes they are, and 3 Archons, if they had been appropriately recalled, might have actually been a huge difference maker, but they weren't. So, yeah, that's just too poor. Too poor of an opener, and INnoVation will take game number 1. The old boomer post-military Terran who constantly questions if he even likes playing this freaking game defeats Creator, who has been you know, nose in the books equivalent of StarCraft 2, constantly grinding, constantly trying to get his championship. Doesn't feel so good, actually, if you put it like that. But fortunately, I like INnoVation, so happy to see him up 1-0. Game 2 is going to be on Gressvon. In the bottom right, up 1, it is INnoVation. And in the top left, we have Creator. Yeah, there's a real easy narrative that you could go with, which is that Creator is kind of a underdog hero. He's the guy in the Disney film that's not really impressive initially, but you know he's got a good heart, and he gives it his all, so you want him to win. Perhaps even the Rock Lee, if we're going to go with anime. And he like, everything about him just screams like someone who's really passionate about the competition and the video game. Actually, he was also very outspoken about Stormgate and Blizzard, in that he he directly talked to them and told them, looked them in the eyes and told them, you guys are our last hope. Like, he wants to be a professional gamer for as long as he possibly can be, and he wants to win a championship. And at the current rate StarCraft 2 is going in Korea, well, that's not going to happen. So this guy just, like, he has all the just people want to cheer for him. And then there's INnoVation, who not only, as I was saying, sometimes doesn't even seem to like the game that much, although he plays it a lot, who didn't even know if he wanted to return to pro gaming. He also, when he was a pro gamer at his peak, was known as a very robotic individual who did not show his emotions. So it was hard to gain kind of that emotional fan, right? If you respected really solid Terran play, and this was the guy that you're going to cheer for, but otherwise, it's kind of easy not to cheer for INnoVation, and I'm saying this as a very big fangirl of him. I understand where people come from when they don't. So this would easily be set up as the people's champion versus the guy who barely even cares. The guy who cares a freak ton, possibly too much about StarCraft, and the guy who just is like, meh, I guess I'll do some things. But God, if I don't love this guy. He's just so freaking good. Last game wasn't the most impressive thing ever, to be honest. I mean, it was more just watching Creator try to be clever and interesting and unique, which, again, makes him easier to cheer for. And the INnoVation properly defending it. But if you appreciate the standard, if you're looking at this DT shenanigans and you're thinking, God, I don't know how to defend that, who can I watch who's going to show me a very stable way of playing Terran? INnoVation's your guy, man. Yes, he is. So what is going to happen this time? I do believe Creator is going to give up on the DT approach, but then I am curious if he's going to try and 4-gate blink his opponents. INnoVation did not play as defensively with a low ground command center this time, but still a fast Widow Mine drop. Indeed. Thousandfold thoughts. INnoVation being as good as he is for as long as he's been, when his general attitude to StarCraft is shrug, is actually impressive. Yes, indeed. That does seem to be the case. Reaper actually already getting 2 probe kills. The Hellion came in, maybe helped out. So that's 3 in total with the scouting probe. That was 2 Reapers overall, though, so really not the best for INnoVation. The Hellion, had it been able to grab maybe 2 more probe kills, it would have been okay. Very minor things as far as the early game of StarCraft 2, but nonetheless, a solid start for Creator, who also has taken away the easy options of scouting. Assuming that he does also find the Hellion, there'll be no way for INnoVation to scout until his medevac drop commences. And then there goes the Hellion. So you can't get that double scout and see if it was in fact going to be a 4-gate or a 2-gate expand until the medevac comes in. The medevac comes in as the 4-gate is commencing, you could be in a little bit of trouble. But this is a faster Widow Mine drop. It's not the 440, 2-base one. So it should have a heads up. In INnoVation, I mean, if he understands the assignment that is Legacy of the Void TVP 2023, should be very wary of 4-gates. If he's been asking around to all other Terran players, filling him in on the meta, I can almost guarantee they've mentioned the 4-gate. So here comes the Widow Mine drop. It's actually not going to scout anything suspicious so far, but then combined with the scout at the front by just a Widow Mine walking, that actually will be enough. So the damage being done, 4 probes go down, and 2... Well, actually, all 3 Widow Mines survived. This one just barely, but still. That's pretty nice for INnoVation. Now let's see if he can defend appropriately. Bunker's on the way. First tank is about to be out. Creator's still not even across the map as he is now chronoing his Warp Prism. Now going to send his Stalkers across. But the Widow Mine drop does force some Stalkers at home. And this is a very typical thing, so it's not supposed to really throw Creator off a whole lot, but just to keep in mind, he will have a couple less stalkers, even though an INnoVation will also have one less tank than he could have if he had immediately gone into it. And this, this Widow Mine is looking to actually take down the Warp Prism! Oh, beautiful! I mean, that was a bit lucky, actually. Well, no. That Warp Prism always goes this direction. There's no other place the Warp Prism goes. I guess it could have gone a little bit farther north if you warped in over here. That's not impossible. But look at that. The Warp Prism takes the damage, and Creator just gives up on it. It was a 3-gate, not a 4-gate, but it was clearly going to be an aggressive one. And now he just goes, never mind. Just kidding. And takes the third base, which is still a little weird for him. You know, if you don't build off of the 3 gates, then you aren't spending that money. You do have a fairly timed Nexus. It's not that much later than a 2-gate, I suppose. But obviously his intention was to control the game and get some poking and prodding done, and it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So number-wise, maybe Creator isn't too bad, but feeling-wise, it's definitely bad. And we can see numbers are actually bad for Creator. It's not a very streamlined build. On top of taking a little bit too much damage from the Widow Mine drop, too. So Storm is trying to try and be a savior. And Storm is pretty good, but he's going to be using an injured Warp Prism for it, so it kind of feels like a bad idea. You don't want to replace the Warp Prism. 275 minerals all that time on that Robo. But honestly, if your entire plan revolves around transporting High Templars, I think you maybe should. Like, it's not a very comfy position for Creator right here. This thing is going to be gunned down by so much. Now, of course, it's one-shottable by a Widow Mine. So don't fly over one of those. But then even a handful of Marines stimmed under, it's going to kill it fairly quickly. Creator's Stalkers do see them move out. They can't do very much about it. There's only 5 Stalkers in play. Creator diving to the High Templars. It's going to have them. And they are going to get a shot off safely. But there's nothing to support the Storms. And that's the real problem. Charge is going to finish up, but with no upgrades, the charge lots will be dead before they interact with the Marines by the looks of it. I think the Widow Mine drop. Oh, auto turret harassment. Okay. Now there's a bit more. I feel better with an Archon. Second Immortal 2. If it does manage to focus fire on the Marauders and not waste shots on the Marines. But we do have a big drop into the main base. INnoVation seeing an opportunity, and it's going to go right over the main, actually. Not bothering to take up this dead space. Recall is going to be used. It's going to be really freaking weird. The Terran army is rather bulked up, so the Storms are effective. Tanks taken out, probably because the Immortals had no other choice but to only target fire the tanks, since everything else was so far back. And that was not very good for INnoVation. That was actually really weird. I'm surprised he went on top of the Nexus. I mean, that just puts him in like a real all-in position. Because, yeah, the tanks are always going to be lost. They siege up, they die, that's life. But if you unsieged here, at least you could try and escape. That was very odd. He does actually escape with 3 medevacs, so they do come back in as Creator is distracted by, I think, more Raven harassment, but I'd say the first drop wasn't that impressive. Creator was looking around for it. Is dealing with, I think, another little reinforcement army, and so is completely out of position. So this second drop is a little more impressive. Much better off escaping as well. That's an easy choice right there. And then INnoVation will just maybe park it and come back later. Since INnoVation's on 3cc, well saturated, and has that big army now, including EMPs, I mean, he really could just chill. Just focus on the micro, and more Raven harassment's going to be very annoying. Double upgrades for the Terran player before Creator even has one. And that one upgrade is an attack upgrade, which, you know, there's a reason why he does this, but just keep in mind that means the Zealots are going to get shredded trying to run into the army. In fact, at this point, I would feel like charge lots are the absolute worst thing you could get. You might as well try and build up your Stalker count and try and micro really well with them, because the Zealots are going to look useless. We'll see if the Zealots get us around, but even then, it's like 8 Zealots. It's not that much. Widowmine numbers are also insane. INnoVation has been very steadily producing the Widowmines. EMP popped the Immortal Shields, and now the Sentries are out of the Guardian Shield they would have had. A second one, I believe. Well, they also just died. So there's that. Shield Body Overcharge can now be avoided. So on the third base, you go to the natural and vice versa, right? But there is no shield battery at the natural, only in the mineral line, so this particular army was a bit screwed. And INnoVation is having a very easy time destroying Creator, to be honest. Creator not necessarily bringing his A game to this TVP. And I think this might have been one of the nicer opponents, actually, because INnoVation is not from 3-4 years ago. He's not peak INnoVation. He's newly from the army INnoVation. This was supposed to favor the guy who's been dedicating his life to StarCraft 2 for a consistent 12 years. And so seeing Creator still lose 0-2, I mean, we could say INnoVation, all due credit, way to come back super quickly and be as good as you are once again. And that's a positive way of looking at it, but I think we watched these two games, and does anyone really get impressed by Creator here? Was there any moment where you were like, oh no, Creator had this good move and that good move? Kind of no. So that makes me very worried for Creator's chances in the group, but INnoVation now heads into the winner match. Our second preliminary match is going to be top right Bunny versus bottom left Classic. Starting off on Royal Blood. We just saw INnoVation 2-0 Creator, and now we have yet another TVP. A kind of similar situation in terms of who's come back and who hasn't. Classic not nearly as fresh off the back of military as INnoVation, but still, he has been to the military and Bunny has not. Bunny very much wanting to win a championship before he has to go to the military, and then certainly a lot of the Korean StarCraft people, players are talking about, you know, if I go to military now, I'm basically retiring. Because StarCraft 2 probably won't be back when I come back. Stormgate might be, but who knows what's going to happen with that. So Bunny, you know, he's kind of almost even looking depressed. I know I don't talk to him. All right. I don't read his thoughts. I didn't go into his diary. All right. But since he was barely unable to get a victory at Atlanta, he has not looked the strongest. He's not looked the happiest. And I'm not even talking about watching his player camera, which I didn't because I didn't watch this live. I'm just talking about his gameplay. You know, occasionally he still shows the same signs of extreme life that he showed in his previous tournaments where he just YOLOs and you're like, yay, Bunny's back. But, and then other times it just, you know, he bombs out of Katowice with no real result to speak of. And then, what was his other performance since Atlanta? A home story cup, I think, that he didn't do particularly well in or something like that. It just, no, it was, Gamers Without Borders, that's what it was. Yeah, he also didn't look particularly impressive there, right? So, yeah, I'm really worried for Bunny. Classic seems to be on a bit of an upswing. He's finally getting his style to work again, I suppose. So he feels like he's been doing better lately. And Bunny has been feeling like he's doing much worse and is honestly just looking less inspiring. Like, I don't know if I can really truly quantify it and describe it, but yeah, just a little less like Bunny. There's a little less hop in his step for a Bunny. Kind of a sad Bunny. It doesn't hop anymore. But we'll see if I'm wrong for this particular best of 3. I mean, I feel like this is a good choice for Bunny. This is a good matchup for him. I don't know if it actually is, though. Take a quick look at Ligulac. Thank goodness for Ligulac. And the guy doesn't even ask for donations. What a baller. We are just watching some Reaper Micro and a very normal 1 Rax Expand versus one Nexus. 7 X4 Expand. Here we go. Bunny did recently lose to Classic in the... Well, that was Katowice. That was a long time ago, actually. It was 3 months ago at this point. So Classic. Wow. If you don't want to spoil yourself and you want to see the stats, just make sure to put that date range before last week. Anyways, so actually this is a bad matchup for Bunny. I'm really shocked by that. It was months ago, though, to be fair, but then I'm not really, as I was just saying, I'm not really excited for Bunny's recent form. But it is GSL, and that is drastically different from these weekend tournaments, in that you can actually prepare for your opponent. So if Bunny was spending the last month preparing for this group. I don't know how long they had notice of the group being the groups, but still, if he's been practicing only for this matchup, then there's something there. But Classic has been looking pretty good the last couple of months, so maybe I do favor him a little bit. Double gas is coming down on the natural. Classic is heading into Phoenix Colossus, something that Bunny probably has picked up on by now. He's had a lot of units in a lot of places. The only thing he's seen is 3 Adepts, which still points towards a Stargate opener, so Bunny might have figured that one out, but does want to get that confirmation. There you have it. Phoenix are seen. No third base as of yet. And combined together, Bunny should be able to figure that it is a 2-base Colossus build. Bunny, not really going to have to change up his build too much. He might, for instance, opt for tanks over Widow Mines, is maybe one of the differences he could go for. But the Raven will be useful, so continue on with that. And then obviously you want to get your 3 barracks up. You he still had a Widow Mine drop before he confirmed it was Phoenix, so that makes this look a little bit weird. You know, if you knew it was Phoenix, you wouldn't go for the Widow Mine drop usually. And I mean, a lot of people don't go for the Raven either, actually. So I know I said the Raven's good against this, but that's more of a if it lives. If the Raven lives, then it is great at disabling the Colossus, isn't it? But if it lives, that's a big if. But the Korean Terrans almost always go for the Raven anyways. It's more the Widow Mine drop might have been skipped. He might have gone into a Viking and a Cyclone to make sure the Phoenix don't do any damage, but Bunny did not bother making any of those offensive units. Is going to continue building Widow Mines as well, and those will be able to shoot up and kill the Phoenix, of course, but they won't be a strong reaction to the Colossus. So far, the strongest thing that Bunny has against that is, of course, the Disable, which may or may not actually hit. So Classic should just be tracking the army a little bit. It looks like he's really non-committal to the Phoenix harassment. He does a little bit, and then he's like, I'm done. See ya, I'm done. Scouting Phoenix, scouting Probe, scouting Pylon, scouting Phoenix. Just playing a very safe game. While getting up his Colossus counts and extend Thermal Lance. Putting some spotters down. Playing the good Protoss, the good. This was played 5 or 6 days ago. So, I mean, I feel like Classic should be okay for the first move out. But it really does come down to the Raven usage. The Phoenix would love to kill that thing. They love it. Not gonna get it though, don't even get that medevac. And appropriately controlled, this Raven should be able to get at least 1 interference matrix. If Bunny gets a nice concave. Maybe. Classic's about to have 3 Colossus with extended Thermal Lance, 2 shield batteries so that he can kind of wibble wobble between the bases. It's going to be a little awkward though. He can't really have a shield battery helping him on the choke, of course. You still usually want to engage preemptively. You want to threaten them, get those Colossus beams going. But this is going to be a defense close to home. Shield battery on the right side gets sniped because Classic was pulled over to the left a little bit, and one of those Colossus does actually go down. It's Carcass being maneuvered there by its fellow Colossi. That was a bit rude looking. You don't see that too often. But anyways, this is technically a hold. A bit of a scrappy one, a bit of a... Okay, that was done. Okay, that happened. But it does constitute a hold. And now Double Forge is on the way. Twilight Council as well. Bunny, having retreated about halfway on the map, gives Classic a lot of time to rebuild the shield battery, which is actually not rebuilding it, so that's a bit dangerous. Oh, what am I got another shot? Jesus. That really hurt the Immortal. Can we stop with the Widow Mines? I mean, I was like, the Widow Mines, maybe not that helpful against Colossus, and then they helped kill a Colossus and injure an Immortal. All right then, cool. And Jesus Christ. Criminy. Observers are good. You know? Did anyone ever tell Classic that? Holy shit. Now, of course, he was trying his best to chrono out the Colossus ASAP, so he didn't spend time getting an observer, but that seems to have kind of backfired on him. The Widow Mine's doing far more damage than they ever should. Classic is getting a proxy gateway, actually. Now, this could just be setting up for the future, you know, predicting this game to go into a bit more of a mid to late game and saying, I'm going to want some harassment going, and that's totally fine. I think that's the only choice he really does have. Any Colossus counterattack was not really possible after losing the third Colossus. So just getting the 4th base and setting up for some harassment seems like a better option to me. Bunny does have a 3rd CC down location now, but those ghosts coming in with some of these Vikings, powerful combination. The next power spike for the Terran. The next big push is on its way. 1-1 upgrades will not be done for Classic. Charge will not be done for him either. Maybe a couple of Archons will help out, but it depends on how many EMPs are going to be available. So far, just the initial 3 that you would get. Wouldn't mind. You know, at this point in time, he has no excuse. He really should have an observer with his army. This is no longer excusable. It's been enough. You would have been able to fit that in there. Just squeeze it in. SCV boldly going to plant a command center on location is about to get wrecked. Riggedy wrecked by these zealots. No chance there. Phoenix actually tried and did a little run by themselves, but they then lost track of the army because of it. Nothing was tracking Bunny's army. As it moved over to the left side, he gets a free kill on a Nexus. Classic chooses the best option at that point, which is not to engage. The Nexus was a goner anyways. Why even risk it? But it's a little concerning that it is just given up for free like that. He's definitely got to do some counter damage. Either do some counter damage or just make sure it doesn't happen again, which is also viable. The game is long enough that losing a base in such a fashion isn't game over. If that was a third base 50 supplies earlier, then, you know, that's different. So Classic is going to try and posture, which I think with the Colossus still... Well, no, that's a lot of Vikings, actually. No, I don't know. Actually, Classic probably should not be on the map, but then it turned into a base trade anyway, so let's see what happens in this case. Bunny's army is well suited against Classic's, but, you know, out of position. Who wins the base trade? And then before anyone says, don't base trade a Terran, that's really old school logic. Both of them are going to have some equal upgrades. Both of them trying to get on top of their production. A bunker. Really ambitious there to think that bunker would have held. But hey, if he kills one of these injured immortals, more power to you. Nothing really in the main base as Classic made sure to get on top of that production ASAP. For Classic, he is supply blocked. He is losing all of his Nexus. He is already transporting his probes, however, and rebuilding a Nexus elsewhere. Whereas Bunny, much later, deploying up all of his buildings. Orbital to the left is going to work out, but this orbital is going to be a goner. This one and this one, of course, could also be chased down by the Phoenix that Classic still has. Classic is going to be denied his blink as well as his upgrades. Bunny's upgrade still going... Okay, no, it's going to die. It's fine. It should die, first of all. SCVs are found out. They may not kill this pylon either. And is that all of Bunny's SCVs? I think it might be. 2 SCVs, 0. Yeah, that was literally all of his SCVs. His command center's got to rebuild one if he wants to hope to, I guess, play the long base race. I don't know if this is going to settle down at any point. Things are still rocking and rolling. Buildings going every which way. Armies trying to figure out what the hell they want to do. But if it does calm down, Bunny on 0 workers is, you know, shockingly in the worst state. He does find the Nexus of Classic at the gold base, gets that cancel, but Classic has enough for another one and one more. He also fit in all these shield batteries prior to a Semix core going down, which I think is a really nice touch. Now the Semix core goes down alongside all the other technology, but this is really nice to remember to do that. Didn't cost any supply, and fitting it in a base race where you have to build a pylon first, then the shield battery, all before that tech building dies, usually is not an option. And people usually don't think that fast, too. In this case, that might just help Classic survive what is an even match. Literally, their army supplies are perfectly even. Upgrades ended up being even, as the Zealots did take down the engineering bay. And now, we have Classic mining, not very much, but still, versus Bunny not mining. Bunny did manage to save an orbital. The Phoenix didn't chase after it. And he can call down mules, but he has to lose supply before he can build an SCV. Here comes the engagement. Classic actually engaging into it. Seems a little bit dangerous, but it looks like it will be a good enough engagement for Classic. Did not need the shield battery. Bunny's army was a little bunched up. It didn't get the preemptive EMPs. It got the reactive EMPs, and just was not a good enough fight for the Terran player. So Classic totally right to dive into that. GG, Classic will win game number 1. Game number 2 is going to be on Ancient Cistern. That's operated as Classic, and the bottom left it is Bunny. Base trades are difficult. Base races are extremely difficult, and Classic had, I believe, a bigger bank, right? That's what it seemed like to me anyways. Actually secured his probe survival. And then, well, was able to collect everything together really quickly, too. He was able to get his Nexus and his army together, protected with shield batteries, like I was saying. So he could have the option of playing the passive long game. Bunny down to 0 workers, supply blocked, and up against someone who still had Stargate units. Didn't really have the option to go, oh, okay, we're gonna macro this one out. He was always going to be in the position of having to do something. So, you know, if Classic doesn't have to move out, has the shield batteries and the overcharge with him, Bunny never breaks that. The only chance was if Classic made a mistake guessing how the engagement was going to go, but Classic did choose an okay engagement. Again, Bunny's army really like bunched up around like this corner, for instance. Bunched up around the corner, not getting the EMPs first and foremost. Not the ideal situation. Plus, Bunny had lost out in all the Vikings, right? So, no direct answer to the Colossus. So it was tough. I think Bunny was in a totally fine position to play out the game in a normal game. I don't think he was behind, but the base trade really messed him up. Hopefully he doesn't break mentally from that. It's a frustrating game. You lose a base trade, especially when it didn't necessarily have to happen. You could certainly blame Bunny for not having a spotter, but it doesn't... it's not really fair to blame one person for not having a spotter, because the other person didn't have a spotter either. Classic did not know he was being attacked. So it just sucks that it turns out worse for you. But if Bunny saw that army hovering around, I guess he still goes. But then if he sees it actually start to charge after his third, maybe he doesn't attack. Maybe he does pull back. Doesn't really have the choice. So now... Classic up 1. I did say I favored him a little bit, but that wasn't a game that was totally one-sided at all. It just was a awkward base trade. It's always difficult. Thank you, Uncertainty. Just cuz. Thanks. So Twilight Council opener from Classic. He did go into the Phoenix Colossus last game. Had a bit of a whoops-a-daisy against those Widow Mines, man. That was almost like a skit, watching a Protoss player just whack their head into a Widow Mine. But now, going into a Twilight Council, very much different. Could be going into a 4-gate blink on this map, changing it up to some very severe form of aggression, capitalize on the bit of momentum that you have. Bunny is going to be able to scout it eventually, whatever it is going to be. The Reaper checking around for proxies. Helene plus Reaper usually get that guaranteed full scout. Jim Rising asking about... Oh, the ESL Open Cup. Yeah, the Korean weeklies have changed to Monday again. Basically, the reasoning we were given is that because the ESL Korean Open Cups were supposed to be on Mondays before GSL moved their schedule, now that GSL has moved their schedule again, Monday is open. So... I don't know. I don't know if the Koreans had any input on that. They do usually like nighttime for them tournaments versus morning tournaments, which the Saturday one was. I mean, morning being 1 p.m., but still. They are night owls for the most part. And these guys, just to bring it back to this particular group, do play in some of the Open Cups. I mean, almost all the Koreans do. Mara doesn't really play in the Open Cups, but almost all the Koreans play in some of the online cups. These two not having met each other recently, though, in those. Again, the last time they faced off was at Katowice. And Classic, I think, took a 2-0, was it? So he looked pretty strong. It is a third base coming out for Classic, but it is also 3 gateways. Is he getting a War Prism? Nope. Okay, so really non-aggressive. Again, when created it in the last series versus INnoVation, it was really awkward because he clearly intended on being aggressive, so he did make a 275 mineral War Prism, quite a chunk of change. Chroned it as well, and then wanted to attack, so even though he didn't get the opportunity to warp in very much, it still really made his build awkward. Classic... yeah, has the ability to make a decent amount of stalkers, and is doing so, but then did prioritize the third nexus. So their Nexus timing, totally fine. Amount of Stalkers is considerable, so they'll be able to micro against some of these units, but that does maybe delay, for instance, a Forge, or of course a Charge follow-up, which is not, so that's something that Bunny has not figured out quite yet. He does not know what is going to follow this Twilight Council. He figured it was a third base. He knows it's only a 3 gate, but is it Colossus? Is it Charge? Is it a fast 4th base? How is this going to be played out? That's something that Bunny doesn't know. Classic actually using his Stalkers super aggressively. I guess I don't mind it, but I mean, you gotta be really careful. This is, yeah, tucking them in the back corner. One Stalker will definitely die. Oh, one Stalker left out of the recall. Friendos, no. Not really worth it there, actually. And that is obviously one of the downsides of not going aggressive, not getting that Warp Prism, is that you can't really turn it into SCV harassment without dedicating a lot of your units. As you could see, he had to blink twice to even get across this gigantic main base. Probably would have been better off trying to snipe the tank or an upgrade, but that's why Bunny had his units positioned the way that he did to make sure that didn't happen. Well, now he's going to do it. All right. Combat shields will be denied. Marauder slow also, but that's a very cheap and very quick upgrade. Would have been much nicer if he had gotten Stim. Maybe he's hoping it is Stim. It is not. And that's not a whole lot of Stalkers even still, right? One of mine pops off, a couple reinforcements come through, and they are not tracking the army currently, which means they also aren't sniping down maybe the Cyclone, maybe the Raven, maybe this Widow Mine. And most importantly, they aren't tracking this drop in the main base, completely unseen until the very last moments. Classic trying to pull his probes away. Not going to be able to save very many of them. And Classic hardly has the army to split up right now because the Stalkers are still on the other side of the map, now walking their way back home. Gateways that are very much necessary are going to be depowered. Widowmines once again ruining Classic's idea of an easy peasy cleanup. All of his army getting injured, and the third base is also under attack. Everything going to hell in the blink of an eye. Doesn't matter that Bunny lost combat shields. This is going to be enough damage to win this game. Bunny actually finding a surprisingly easy victory, all said and done. You know, he just kind of walked across the map, did a double drop, and then boom, suddenly victory. When usually there's a little bit more. Like, it's a solid strat. Push up here, drop up here. It's a solid strat. A lot of Terran players will do this. But, you know, it's not supposed to end the game. Protoss player is supposed to go, oh shit, and then maybe have one of these flowers depowered, you know? I don't know what else to call them. This group of structures depowered. Not all of them. And then not lose over 20 workers as well. The only thing that really went okay, I suppose, for that was that not all of the army died, I guess. But, no, one Colossus did die, so that's still pretty considerable. And a lot of the Widow Mines still popped off. Wow. Big delay on everything Classic wanted to do. Down 7 workers, down in upgrades, down in vision on the map. A whole lot of Stalkers to get that map control. The Observer that was offensively placed has now been picked off, and Bunny has the ability to roam. Getting his 4th and 5th barracks set up as his 3rd. Becomes an orbital, little anti-Warp Prism defense. Not that Classic actually has one. And Bunny is ready to go once again, almost up 20 army supply, and with that better upgrade. Colossus and a shield battery. Oh, that's pretty difficult to break still, but Bunny will also this time around have combat shields, which, you know, if he had combat shields with everything that went down just a minute ago, maybe he straight up wins the game. But now he's finally getting it. That was a weird stim, because he immediately held position afterwards. Oh, what did I drop? Oh my god. Oh, might as well not have pulled, man. 13 probes go down to that one, and then this army gets in. Gonna enter into the main base and actually meet a Colossus. So maybe not. Bunny's gonna back away. He does not have a very good answer against 3 Colossus and a couple of force fields, so he's gonna want to wait for that. No Vikings being produced, actually tanks instead now being consistently produced alongside those Vikings. So those would be the answers to the Colossus, basically. Classic is gonna try and bully his opponents, and if Bunny was only relying on Viking production, this would actually be a really good moment for Classic. He's out upgraded by 2 upgrades. He actually has less army supply, but not by that much, but he has Colossus technology. So him moving in here does make sense with the tanks, even with a couple of extra shots, is a nice thing to have. SCVs pulled with a nice concave of a hefty amount of Marauders, and all of it combined together means that Bunny should be okay to live, but he was very correct to be thinking defensively. You know, if he was like, oh shit, the Colossus would counterattack me and I'm in trouble, he was right about that. But because he took it seriously, he will be able to hold. The SCV is a worthy sacrifice to overall win this battle and win the game. Classic basically all in with this, all before 1-1 is even done. GG. Bunny wins game number 2. Game 3 is going to be on Babylon. In the top left, we have Classic. Bottom right, it is Bunny. You know, neither game's particularly exciting. No, the base trade was pretty exciting. What was unfortunate about it was that it was, I think, determined to be in one person's favor. There was no question marks. As soon as Classic had the shield batteries to defend a Nexus that was mining, that was kind of it. And then him pushing out was a little dangerous, but obviously it worked out fine. So the base race didn't turn into that nail-biting base race that I guess I was hoping for. And then game 2 was rather easy peasy. It was a very familiar tactic used by many Terrans, the attack up the third, drop in the main base. And then it literally won the game. I do love that Classic tried to still do that attack, which threw it a little bit into question. It's just that Bunny did read that possibility very well. Like I was trying to emphasize, you know, it's that tank production seemed maybe a little bit randomly timed, because usually in this matchup you either start with tanks and stop building them or continue producing them, or you get Widow Mines and then you stop producing tanks entirely. Where Bunny actually went into tanks, and that again was just that little bit that helped him out. His concave of Marauders with double upgrades and an SCV pool probably would have done enough too, but you take away the tanks, you take away the SCV pool, and you take away the concave, and Classic has a real shot to win that game. No doubt about that. But it you know, we could see that Bunny was prepared for the inevitability, so that wasn't really all that much back and forth. So we'll see if game 3 has a bit more, maybe get another base trade and see it actually go the distance this time. Got voluntold. Never heard that phrase. That's a good one. I'm volunteering you for something. I was just telling my Twitch chat about my basketball, joining a team again, trying to get active and all that good stuff. And it is surprising. I was shooting hoops for practice, and if I was just doing some like typical practice shots, I was missing by like this much, but I was airballing. And I was like, oh shoot, like I'm in trouble. But then I started practicing where you flip the ball back to you, so you get the pass and then you turn and then you shoot. And those shots were actually sinking. And I was like, huh. I guess it's basically like instincts, right? It's weird. It's like 13 years later. I've practiced basketball maybe once every 4 years since my high school days. But anyways, it's amazing just how stuff comes back, which I guess is a little bit relevant to the game at hand. Not basketball, but StarCraft 2. Which is that, you know, we do have a lot of the Korean players coming back, Classic included, although it's been, what, a year since he's come back? And to consider how good you have to be on a professional level, and the fact that these guys get back into it and pretty much immediately hit GM, of course, but then are often back to being decent ladder practice against the guys who aren't, you know, spending time in the military, it's pretty cool. Usually the macro mistakes do shine a little bit more if you're really paying attention, and then the meta knowledge is really questionable. But Classic's been back for quite some time. And as I was saying, recently, I think, really getting back into form. But for a while, on his return from the military, I was doubtful that he would actually... Well, that he would actually be any good, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, we've had a couple other people come back and then go, never mind, not for me. Like Tasia, for instance. Tasia had one, you know, home story cup where he built up hope in all of his fans and then quickly dashed it by just retiring almost immediately after. Tasia is a weird guy. But yeah, he did eventually actually retire. Classic is going back into 2-base Colossus, by the way. I mean, I don't think the last game was determined off of his Twilight Council opener, but he is playing a very conservative 2-base style. Third base will come down, but, you know, if need be, you'd cancel it. Of course, you don't need to. Bunny is doing a typical build. Wouldn't mind just shot out a Phoenix, though. And the help of the Viking, one Phoenix dies. That is exactly what Classic did not want to have happen. That is a lot of damage taken. A Phoenix is extremely expensive. Fast building, but very expensive. Yeah, Fantasy also tried to get back onto StarCraft 2. Here's the thing, though. Fantasy was very vocal about how much he enjoyed StarCraft 2. Tasia was literally the opposite. Tasia repeatedly would say that I just want to win money. Like, INnoVation wasn't even as stone cold honest as Tasia was. But yeah, Fantasy, he actually said he preferred StarCraft 2. But he did get a offer that I think he should not have refused, which was to coach a team. Because, let's be honest, it's a brighter future. So I wish Fantasy would stream StarCraft 2, but it's understandable that he doesn't. Especially because his name would still get him a lot of balloons on Afrika from streaming Brood War. He was actually one of the world's best players before Brood War swapped over to StarCraft 2. Anyways, we do have, as I was saying, that solid 2-base setup for both teams. Both players. Classic now getting his third. Again, don't mind his shield battery position here, but he is missing one of the natural, and we're still kind of in that type of map where the Terran could threaten. But I guess they do typically go here. Besides that one Phoenix mistake, not too much else to talk about. Classic played this style in the first game, and was doing okay with it, but it really was the wonkiness of a base race that mostly set Bunny behind. I don't think he was behind at all up until that point. But I could have been wrong. 3 Phoenix, not really all that threatening, even for a Raven. Well, no, actually, they're still threatening for a Raven. They kill Ravens very quickly. They do. But fortunately, Bunny is controlling it very nicely, making sure that it is far away from being sniped. I think if you suicide one Phoenix to kill the Raven, that is worth it. Anything more, not so much. And he's already lost one Phoenix, so... 2 Colossus are ready to go. Extend Thermal Lance will be finished. And the attack is going to go through here. So the middle map first. This is actually looking really bad for Classic, actually. Without that shield battery to help out. Okay, it's finishing. It is finishing. But still, that's quite the concave with a double disable on the Colossus as well. Their Raven, well, doing exactly what it wants. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Lots of Marines are injured and getting one-shotted by the Colossus. But now the Widow Mines, which have just been Classic's nemesis this entire series, hold up the Colossus and the Immortal, leaving only the basic gateway units and a couple of Phoenix to help clear out the rest of the army, which is just not what they really want to be doing, right? Not against the Marines that are left over. The Colossus is supposed to handle this, not the Phoenix. 9 probes do go down. Maybe that's not all that terrible, but more damage on the third base as well. More probe damage. Nexus has to recall. The Marines are still in the main base, however, and they might get a couple of more probe kills. Classic is defending, I suppose, ultimately, but it was a cluster finagle. That's what I'm going to call it, to be PG. And again, Widow Mines, for the love of God. This Widow Mine, unfortunately, did not pop off on the probes, but the Widow Mines that barred the army from following was the real power move there from Bunny, who did still get 16 probes with all of the army thrown every which way. Now, the downside of what Bunny did, hey, you killed a bunch of probes, but you did throw the army away. You just literally threw it at the bases and then went, okay, I hope they do some damage. Well, they did economic damage. They didn't tear down any of these Colossus. So Bunny is in trouble. His army supply is still less than his opponent's. That +1 attack only going to help him so much if the Colossus get into perfect position. Fortunately, the Phoenix count was called, so maybe, just maybe, this command center could live. Maybe. No, not with the Stalkers helping out to the very last seconds. The SCVs were pulled, trying to repair it, but just so much stuff. So much fauna. Command center could not be repaired. And Classic immediately returning that damage and then some, I would say. He should have already produced enough probes to saturate his 3 bases again, and yes, he has, whereas Bunny will just lost an entire command center, so that seems a little bit worse. Bunny still has those better upgrades, a healthy Marauder counts, and medevacs that are increasing on the juice. So if Bunny could get a decent concave or surround, he could take down these Colossus, but 4 Colossus when you don't have very many Vikings, you would need one of the better engagements possible. The Viking count will be at 6. It really needs to be up to 8 or 10, though, to really be able to tear down 4 Colossus dependably enough. Maybe if Classic lets one of these terrains... Mountain? It's a mountain. Yeah. Oh, there's a thingamajigger here. He's got his little hidey hole. Anyways. The Vikings could abuse this, but they really shouldn't, because there's no 4th base to defend. And there is no 4th base as well, just to like end the statement there. There is no 4th base, so while Bunny losing a 3rd command center is still pretty bad, Classic is not all that much ahead on the economy. He basically was allowed to recover his economy, maybe get a little bit ahead, but not to the point where Bunny is just like, GG, get out. No, not at all. Bunny does replace his 3rd. He kept his own army alive too, so he had kind of a similar situation where the economic damage was done, but not the army damage. But Classic did get 3 base saturation and does have his own upgrades finally. It's just that if he could have fit in a 4th base during that as well, then he would be really flying here. That is a freak ton of zealots. And we do not have Widow Mines aplenty anymore. In fact, Widow Mine production has stalled out. Bunny getting pennies from the couch cushions to actually afford all of his ghosts currently. Finally, with his 3rd base up and running, he should be better off from the mineral count, but he was starting to feel the pain of losing the 3rd base. So it's fortunate that he has it up as quick as he did. Classic seems to still be in an overall better position with 2-2 started up. He does have Blink on the wagon. Blink is very late, but he had Phoenix, of course. And I think he has Archons. I saw Templar Archives. Oh, he literally has them. I'm blind. He has 2 Archons on the front already, so there you go. EMPs are available. And, well, this is actually one of the worst fights Classic could be taking. Why is Classic taking this fight? Feeling very confident with his 4 Colossus, I suppose, but the EMPs just shattered his frontline army's health. He was the one pushing through a choke into a concave from the bio. I guess Bunny could have overstayed, could have overestimated his concave, and that would have probably still worked out for Classic. Unfortunately, Bunny did not. Bunny just took the opportunity where he had it and then backed away. His best opportunity is going to include his Vikings actually killing off some of these Colossus before he truly engages. So, you know, with that previous engagement, Vikings weren't killing the Colossus. Bunny eventually had to back away, but he did. Really nicely timed. And now his Vikings are looking to take advantage of this terrain, because now there is a 4th base to defend. And if you can just snipe it, if you can snipe 2 Colossus before the real engagement goes down, even as Classic finishes up his 2-2 upgrades, Bunny will have a chance to push into this 4th base. Oh my god, he's pulled the SCVs. Hello! Alright, here we go. He is a bit bunched up, but that is a lot of stuff to kill. 3 Colossus now as the 4th one did go down. Shield Body Overcharge only helping the Colossus at this point, when preferably was helping the entire army. And the Viking count is proving to be dominant. The Stalkers went to the left, the Colossus went to the right. It was not ideal whatsoever, as Classic was as surprised as I was to see a bunch of SCVs enter into the battle, and Bunny, with a very decisive SCV pull, is going to be winning this game. Upgrades be damned. He forced Classic to go, oh shit. And then Classic fumbled, man. He had no idea how to split his army to take care of that, because he had no idea that Bunny was going to be so bold as to pull those damn SCVs. And that is going to be it, guys. Classic has nothing. 17 army supply, a couple of Archons. They're going to desperately go for a counterattack. Good luck with that. Bunny might have sacrificed his SCVs, but he still has mules and 16 of them left over. So, you know, it's not that bad, actually. Mules, man. And Classic is going to be denied all of his mining as the Vikings land. This recall actually is not going to be very good. The shield battery does help, actually. Wait, the shield battery died? I wonder if the Vikings could have taken on the army themselves. Well, there's a lot more army besides the Vikings. So, we can figure that one out later in the unit tester. GG. Bunny takes a 2-1 surprising victory, actually, because I really think Classic was almost set up to win. He had a shield battery at his 4th base. He had his 2-2 upgrades finished. He still had 4 Colossus intact. But the Vikings ended up doing what they needed to do. And The SCVs definitely did what they needed to do, too. SCVs tanked all 4 of the Colossus shots while they were still alive. And then the Colossus weren't really hitting anything particularly well while they backed away. GG's. Bunny will now go on to face INnoVation in the winners match. For the winner match, we do have 2 Terrans. In the top right, it is INnoVation. Bottom left, it is Bunny. So, since INnoVation is fresh off the military, you wouldn't really expect to see him in the winners match. And he did face someone who I think is, good. Who you would, you'd almost argue kind of deserves to be in the winners match more than INnoVation. But obviously deserve is a fickle word. He lost. He straight up lost. It was not a particularly good loss either for Creator. He just looked worse than INnoVation. So it's not that INnoVation looks like he's back to his WCS champion form. No, not really. It's just that he looked solid and Creator didn't. So I don't know what that means for this matchup, but since Bunny I also think isn't exactly playing his absolute best, even though he did win against Classic, weirdly enough, I'm kind of leaning towards INnoVation's like solid and yes, sometimes boring playstyle versus Bunny's sometimes YOLO-ness. Because this could actually end up looking a bit like INnoVation versus Creator, where Creator was doing, like a DT Blink build, which I still don't... I've actually seen that like 4 or 5 times, and I think I've always seen it not work in PvT in the last 2 months. So I'm biased against it. But anyways, Bunny might try and do maybe like a 2 racks into a 2-on-1. INnoVation plays a very standard, safe 3cc build. I mean, INnoVation would actually be the best at doing that. So much so that I would advise Bunny to not do it, like this weird circular thing. It's like, well, you could do it, and that might be surprising, but then INnoVation is really good against it, so maybe don't do it. But then if you play a direct 3cc versus 3cc against INnoVation, you're also playing into his macro game, so that's not very good either. So yeah, assuming that INnoVation mechanically is on par with Bunny, I do favor him strategically. And fortunately, TVT is not a matchup where there's a lot of differences in terms of the macro sense. I mean, as far as INnoVation's meta as he left to the military, what was he playing on for the openers of TVT? He would have still been doing Reapers and Ravens, right? Different Ravens, but still. So yeah, it's not even like this guy's coming back from 2012 TVT. And overall, once you get to Marine Tank versus Marine Tank, it's very similar to 2010 even. So there could be maybe something that trips INnoVation up in the early game that I can't think of currently, but I think INnoVation would still be very, very familiar with TVT. And it would just be a question of his mechanics. All right, so far, nothing really to speak of as far as the actual, aggressive fronts. None of these players going for something that threatens the other. INnoVation trying to get a little bit of a 1-2 going on, but it's 2 Reapers and a Hellion for both parties. It's not exactly fireworks here. INnoVation moves on to Cyclone, Bunny moves on to a Cyclone, they both move into a Starport, and we could see a difference here. There we go, Bunny is going to be opting for the more aggressive medevac, INnoVation for the far more standard Tech Lab. Oh, INnoVation, you never change. Don't ever change. Bunny as well, actually. Bunny is a bit more of the aggressive guy, and I love it. I want to see him. I want to see him being his almost carefree, YOLO-y self, INnoVation's Reaper is still wanting to get a bit of a backstab, as well as an additional scout, because they actually did not scout the starport and what could be coming from the starport. So if they got in now, saw a tech lab building, they could say, oh, a medevac was built before. And they're going to miss that opportunity. So medevac flies across the map, filled with Marines. Cyclone, singular, will be alongside it. INnoVation's tank is about halfway done. Timing's going to be quite close here. Quite close indeed, actually. Bunny takes a second to unload. He's still finding INnoVation without that tank. Lock-on goes onto a Marine. It's not the bestest lock-on ever. Here's the tank, and that tank will be able to siege up securely. And will be able to ward away. Oh, now that it's double Cyclone. Still trying to get the lock-on to the tank when there are still units protecting the tank. It's a little bit too much to ask. So while the micro potential felt almost limitless for Bunny with a medevac and 2 Cyclones, not actually the case. He's going to entirely back away, not even try and get into the main base of his opponents, and that means this medevac drop was not particularly impressive, but it also didn't cost him an extreme amount either. INnoVation takes a 1-worker lead, does have faster stim, but slower on the 3rd CC. INnoVation will have a faster Raven, but then doesn't start up a second one, so it's not more Ravens. He actually went quite quickly into a 2-base stim follow-up for medevacs, which this has suddenly turned the whole thing around. Bunny went for that 2-base medevac drop. Okay, he's a more aggressive guy, makes sense. INnoVation almost posturing to be the normal guy by, look, I got a tank, look, I got a Raven, but he's actually swapping over into the aggression. And Bunny might not be expecting this, and not just Bunny because he's facing INnoVation. This is actually just a weird twist on TVT. INnoVation is being weird, you guys. He's living up to his name, which I know is the joke, is that he never was innovative, but he was actually. He did create quite a few of the builds that we still use today, but that's besides the point. I'm not going to get on that rant again, I swear. Now the Reapers of Bunny do go into the main base, and they see a very awkward setup. They're like, wait a second, that stem's really fast. Wait a second, that starport's not on the tech lab anymore. Hold on here, what's going on? And of course, they saw the medevacs as well, which were awkwardly trying to repair the SCVs. So Bunny just has to, rearrange his thinking about this game and go from, oh, well, I'm going to be aggressive and you're going to be defensive, probably, and we're both going to have very similar units, Ravens and Vikings and tanks, to, oh, okay, you're about to attack me. You're straight up about to attack me. So get back on the defensive, definitely don't reach towards your 3rd CC, and then play a very, very slow style of TTT. Bunny has to wait for his stim and his combat shield before feeling very confident to move out in the map. So his 3rd CC might still end up being later than INnoVation's because INnoVation is applying so much pressure. We do have double Ravens going for the harassment from Bunny to INnoVation's very, very poor, unfortunate SCV line. But then the Ravens are not at home, so there's the takeaway. INnoVation was thinking about going for a drop, but with only 2 medevacs, quite difficult to do so. And Bunny survived his own medevac drop, I guess, with both Cyclones alive, so that's a bit much to move into. 9 SCVs go down to the auto turret harassment, some delay on the barracks as well. Big old doom drop going to be attempted here from INnoVation. This is way riskier than I was giving his CVT credit for. Into the Cyclones, into the missile turret. The tanks do unload, however, but another medevac gets taken down, and a 3rd one gets injured. Marines not really getting close to anything important. They don't have combat shields, so they cannot stand on top of even 1 tank, much less 2 or 3. And INnoVation is getting riggedy bopped. This is not at all what I was expecting, and, while I do appreciate the attempt to really change things up, I'm not even sure it was going to work even if Bunny didn't scout it. But Bunny did scout it. He did not do something like move his army out into the map and set his 3rd CC on location, because then that's probably when INnoVation bops him. Bunny just played nice and defensive, and INnoVation is pretty freaking screwed. So, yeah, this is pretty much it. Game 2, in the top left, really not doing very well with the change into aggression. It is INnoVation. In the bottom right, it is Bunny, and the roles really got reversed. Bunny opening up with a medevac drop wasn't the craziest, most aggressive thing ever, but it did point to more aggression than INnoVation's Raven opener, and that seemed kind of par for the course, right? That was like, oh, okay, this is Bunny versus INnoVation. There you go. Perfect example. And then INnoVation decided to flip it. It was like 180, man, just go right into being aggressive, which I think is kind of a clever idea because no one expects that type of transition after the tank and after the Raven. But because it was scouted, it was much easier for Bunny to hold against. And then in general, assuming that the 2-base attack does not shock in all the Terran opponent, the 2-base attacks are worse. I mean, that's we don't see a lot of 2-base dedication versus 3CC and TVT anymore because it was figured out about 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't as good. And INnoVation is partially to blame for that. He was one of the guys always defending the 2-base attackers with his 3cc. So, you have yourself to blame, INnoVation. But I really do think it was kind of a cool change-up. Once you see that tank, once you see that Raven, it's almost always going to be into its second Raven or into Vikings. Very rarely going into that Stim and then into Medivacs, going for effectively like a 2-1-1 build. But a very, very, very different course to get there. So, and then if we do see more of a 2-base committal, for instance, if someone opens up with a 2-racks opener in-house to then go on to 2-1-1, which we've seen a couple times recently, here in Marine yesterday in the Open Cup, it's definitely not intended to stay on there. INnoVation did not intend to stay on there either. He did have his 3rd CC building. He was prepared to use the build as a contain, but then Ravens came in and took down his economy, which is already worse than his opponent, so I think that's when he decided to YOLO. Plus, there's just a little more potential with the straight-up 2-racks opener to actually do early game damage. This time around, INnoVation goes for a factory expand, so does Bunny. Actually, no differences from last time, just paying attention to the add-on swaps afterwards. His INnoVation is at least trying to be somewhat tricky. Bunny is now in a very good position to make it out of the group. He had a little bit of trouble with Classic, but having no trouble with INnoVation in the last game. Trading out 1 Reaper for 1. Okay, no news here, guys. And then Tech Labs for both, Reactors for both. Waiting for the potential swap or not. Difference so far is that Bunny opts for the Cyclone, which is a great map control tool. INnoVation opts for a tank immediately, so he won't have anything out in the map reliably, and he'll have a bit less on the anti-air. But he'll have an entire additional tank. So if it became into a tank war, he'd be a little bit favored. Medevac coming as well. It's going to turn this into a tank drop. Bunny's going to go for a Cyclone drop, and we've seen this before. As funny as it is, we have seen the 2 different drops cross paths, and I do believe I've said this before, so I'll say it again. I do think the Cyclones are better. The Cyclones just have more micro potential, and when you have 2, it's kind of the perfect situation, because 1 locks onto the Medevac, 1 locks onto the tank. The tank guy is screwed kind of no matter what they do. I was wrong, though. INnoVation's not going to bring the tank. He's going to use this to send his Marines. Have the tank at home. This could actually work out, unless he runs right into Bunny's Cyclone. Well, that's just very unfortunate there. Medevac is going to live is the good news, but INnoVation's entire plan has been revealed. Now, his tank is still sieged up, so I assume he's safe. And weirdly enough, he went tank into Cyclone, back into tank, so that's really weird. Lock on much better for Bunny, but having to break it as he runs away. And now INnoVation's going for the chase, but he doesn't realize that Bunny also has a Medevac and also has a second Cyclone. The first one got the lock onto the Medevac anyways, and now with a Medevac here, Bunny is going to micro, and more micro. One of those Cyclones is severely injured, so he's got to be very careful, but which one actually goes for the lock on? It is the correct one. It takes 1 shot that it can take, still does a lot of damage to INnoVation's tank. And Bunny, well, at this point in time, now both of them in the red, probably has to evacuate. But he did just take down all of INnoVation's would-be map control. That Medevac no longer available for INnoVation. You don't really want to rebuild it very quickly. And this time INnoVation is actually going into Ravens in a 3rd CC. And Bunny is the one that could repair up his units, put Marines in here, what have you, and have a little bit more of that map control. 2 Cyclones can go back on patrol out in the middle of the map. The Medevac could pick up Marines to go for a drop. It's just a comfier situation, as Bunny also has about a minute faster command center. So Bunny is playing really good TVT. INnoVation, well, this game just got, well, quite unfortunate, honestly. Because if his tank was at home and his Medevac gets to go across the map unnoticed, I mean, it could have done a little bit of damage. I don't know about a lot, but it could have done a little bit. There's the double Cyclones going out again in the Medevac. So the idea is if they do get intercepted, unless they're disabled, Unless the medevac's disabled, they can unload and kill whatever's chasing them. So it's generally a safe move. Generally. I am pointing out the Raven disable because that's exactly what INnoVation's also hoping will happen here. But is he paying attention? The scan reveals a bit of movement on the Vikings. It missed the Raven-Viking combination to the top, and now, oh my god, the reinforcing Vikings just get locked on. Oh, this is the worst case scenario for INnoVation. I mean, oh boy, he's gonna lose 3 Vikings to this. So much distraction. Of course, Bunny's medevac lives. A couple of SCVs go down as well. No, not the Raven as well! Are you kidding me? Absolutely worst case scenario. Ugh, that's not pretty. Press F. INnoVation, supply, not really reflecting how terrible this game has gone for him. Yet. But you know, it'll get there. Is there music? Not anymore. Okay, whatever. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. The supplies should widen drastically in about a minute and a half. In fact, even a bit sooner than that already. Finally, more of a supply gap. INnoVation, the Stim, and 1-1 are actually faster than his opponents, so it's not all bad news, I suppose. And INnoVation's 4th and 5th barracks are really not that far behind. So, you know, as far as the economy goes, they both have been quite similar. And Bunny did spike right there, but you can see, so overall, slightly Bunny favored. And that should reveal itself in something. What does he have? Oh, he has 2 Ravens to 0. I mean, that's nice. 2 medevacs already out. 4 Vikings to 0. There you go. So Bunny's got a couple of good things to use. Spotters being sent out every direction. INnoVation on 3 bases does have the whole possibility that is TVT in the comeback of the matchup, right? He's got that to work with. 3 CC, TVT, anything can happen. It's when it's 2 CCs that it's like, I don't think he can come back. That's only if INnoVation plays a rather perfect game. And there's one thing that I think INnoVation would be behind on. I would suspect it's the perfect comeback that is TVT. Going from the Marine Tank 3cc setup into enough Vikings to ensure that you don't die to Vikings. Because before INnoVation left the military, I think there was not as many comebacks made in this game. Maru really paved the way and showed the rest of the Terrans how you make this game, you know, impossible to lose quickly. INnoVation, not having a good day, you guys. Double drop gets picked off. Jesus. Anyways. So, yeah, INnoVation might be a little less practice with that, because Maru was the only one who could do it for a while. People were like, how in the world does this guy keep coming back in games? And then it was pretty figured out. And then, I think you had other people able to replicate it, so now everyone has a chance, if they get their 3 CCs up, to still win the game, I would say. Even if they're really far behind. But INnoVation might be missing that Starport edition. So maybe Bunny can't kill INnoVation on the ground, but Bunny could probably swap into air, and I imagine he'd win that. INnoVation isn't exactly a stranger to playing, you know, the late game at TVT, but just specifically the finer details of how to do it when you're behind is the issue that I'm thinking of here. Because INnoVation is certainly behind. Nothing is going well for him. He even has lost his upgrade advantage, as Bunny remembers his armor, and INnoVation does not, so he's maybe a bit shy on the minerals. Now that he has it, he doesn't remember it. So that's problematic. Attack is still the better upgrade to get, but, you know, it's still got an upgrade. Also, Bunny's 4th base already turning into a planetary. INnoVation still just finishing on up. Bunny has plenty of army to work with. No way that INnoVation is going to do much damage here, but he is trying to posture, and it's better than nothing. However, you got to be very confident about your posturing and not just lose the engagements. Raven comes in from both sides? No, that's right. INnoVation didn't have one. Just the Bunny anti-armor missile, which is very effective. Interference Matrix also came down, but that was less important. In fact, overall, it was a wash anyways. For a minute there, I thought INnoVation was painting Bunny's army orange, but Bunny's army's just red, so. Well, that's pretty effective. That's going to cause the tanks to unsiege, and Bunny's reinforcements are already ready to go, so they're going to chase after that. The Vikings also pick up a medevac. Try to save the tank. And now Bunny does still have that great position. Even army supply, but of course he has defender's advantage, so everything's back over here already. Faster 5th base, faster 6th base, INnoVation, still working on the planetary. Finally remembered his +2 armor, finally realized he wasn't getting it, but far too late. And now Bunny is gonna be ahead on upgrades. I'll give it 30 seconds. He's almost there. Bunny does have enough tanks that if he wanted to just keep them at home and then drive through the middle with his Marines, that would be an option. INnoVation is consistently scanning, however, and just scanned the main base, saw that there wasn't a whole lot of reinforcements, but there are missile turrets, there are Vikings. I guess this will work out. INnoVation gets to unload almost all of his army. 4 tanks siege up, starting to drive into this production line, which you all know is a real weakness of the Terran race. Bunny has got a bit of a struggle to take care of this. Despite the stat defense that was available, INnoVation unloads enough to be intimidating, but here comes the rest of Bunny's army, and the tank is on the low ground. Actually really nicely done for Bunny to realize that would work. They didn't hit this backline tank, but they hit the ones up here. I would never have noticed that. Nicely done. I think Bunny was eventually going to have enough army to crack that anyways, just with getting defense advantage. Getting that nice concave around it as well, but tanks in the low ground helped out, and the best thing about this is that they helped kill the tanks and still helped to protect the 3rd, in case INnoVation tried to drive his tanks in or a couple of Marines. So that was really nicely done by Bunny, turning a potentially sour situation into a nice meal, I guess, if you like sour things. I certainly do. Now Bunny has all of his bases up and running, something that INnoVation has not been able to keep up with and is not tracking either. I mean, he knows there's a 4th base thanks to the sensor tower, but he's trying to drive home a victory, like right here, right now. He's even gone into multiple barracks as the option, not multiple starports, so he's all about that momentum. However, it's not quite working. And so he is losing out on the economy. He will be losing out on the technology front as well. At the end of the day, the extra starports is kind of theoretically the best thing you can do if you're, according to the skill caps, I suppose. Probably a higher skill cap. But no one plays StarCraft perfectly, so there's always that chance for INnoVation style to work out. Not if he's also being dropped and distracted, however. Although a nice defense. 1 tank perfectly timed, sieged up, and now with the Marines helping out. Upgrades are about to kick in for INnoVation, actually, who again managed to have an upgrade lead. He does have +3 attack finished as well as his 2 armor, so just for another minute or so, he will have better Marines than his opponents. Can he actually make them work? That was a lot of tanks to run into, and INnoVation even was like, okay, hold on, I can't run into all those tanks, let's back away. But as he backed away, he lost a good chunk of his Marines. He was very close to getting into a better position, one that could actually abuse the production line and start hitting some of the command centers, but now just has to take the 3rd base, or the 4th base rather, as his prize. It's not the worst prize ever, but it's okay if you can actually get it. He gets the extra orbital command, and the planetary looks like it'll be a goner, but 1 Liberator being quite the pain in the ass. It's going to force INnoVation to back away. You know, if he continued trying to kill that freaking planetary, he probably would have lost 3 or 4 tanks and had to sack his Marines on it, and just figures it's not worth it. Bunny got him beat there, so the 4th stays intact, the 5th still unscouted, and Bunny's drop even is able to escape after it killed a decent amount of SCVs, like 19 SCVs went down, almost got the orbital. Finally, Bunny's 3-3 finishes. So now Bunny has the upgrade lead again because he got the armor. INnoVation did not. INnoVation totally, entirely relying on his Marine count as well with the heavy barrack style of play he's chosen. That being out-upgraded is, well, a death sentence. Like, he should never win with this because of that. It'd be very different if Bunny was the one who was down 20 supply and it was an army supply. It's not. INnoVation's just straight up down in the economy. And what do you do when you're desperate as a Terran player? You doom drop, of course you do. Tank is sieged up. In fact, 2 tanks are sieged up, but the missile turret's not covering as well as Bunny was hoping. So perhaps this could still work out. Boost has expired, so not the best drop on top of the tanks, but eventually happens, and we got ourselves a good old-fashioned base trade. Bunny is killing the 3rd CC, killing the natural of his opponent, scanning the main base. INnoVation has prepared for this. He saw the army incoming with the sensor tower, probably, and started to prepare faster than Bunny did, who figured, you know, he had enough SAC defense to stop this from happening. And things get a little topsy-turvy, but we see innovation supply plummeting a lot faster. That is because of his SCV counts. So far, his army is still relatively intact. 2 tanks firing away, helping a lot, but no medevacs healing innovations, Marines. And that is going to be it for his defense of his main base. But Bunny also did not defend his main base. What Bunny seems to be defending is actually his natural. 4 tanks with a couple of missile turrets is actually a really nice last-second defense. You don't see this often, but this is exactly what Bunny needs. Innovation is going to try and go around it, but it doesn't really work out. Manages to unload most of his army, but in a really awkward spot under the fire of the tanks. Now the Liberators as well, and Bunny's army still outpowering Innovations. Bunny's economy also better than Innovation, as he does have those extra command centers, and that is that. It got a little dicey towards the end, but Bunny does grab the 2-0 and moves on to the round of 8 of GSL. Innovation will be awaiting the winner of Classic versus Creator. The elimination match will be a PvP. In the top right, it is Creator. And bottom left, it is Classic. We just saw Bunny 2-0 Innovation in the winner's match. He's already moving on to the round of 8. An excellent performance for him. Happy to see it. I was saying that Bunny hasn't really been very impressive the last few months, but it's not really the most difficult GSL group. I think a peak form Bunny, one that I was really confident in, this would even be a bit of a softball group. He'd almost guaranteed be out in top 2. But, yeah, it was a little questionable. But no, he does it. He wins. First beating Creator, then Innovation. No, wait, first beating Classic, then Innovation. Does not help that these 2 Protoss players have the name that starts with a C. It does not. But, yeah, and then, of course, Creator did lose against Innovation. Classic lost against Bunny. There we go. Yep. And now they face each other. So their PvTs weren't up to the task. Perhaps one of these guys' PvP will be. I don't know who I favor. I think these guys play each other a decent bit, though. In the Korean Open Cups. They do both play in it a decent bit, at the very least. So they should be very familiar with each other's style. And because they're like they're 2 of like 16 pro gamers in Korea now.
Thank you for appeasing the overmind.
It's a sad statement, but is it untrue? Thank you, Public House, for 3 months. I made myself sad. Poor Korea. Anywho, 2-gate versus 2-gate. It is Ancient Cistern, so no one would really be inclined to expand on this map quickly, much less to Korean Protosses, who still definitely are more aggressive than their European counterparts. And the North American, but I'd say definitely Europe has the stereotype of being macro passive, plus it has max packs, which always one gets expand. Classic does slap down a pylon, but just to freak out Creator. Creator not going to deal in such mind games. He's going to play a respectable PvP. Well, so far anyways. We'll see if that actually, continues being the case. He is going for a double stalker opener, and a probe is suspiciously moving across the map, so I'm going to take that back. Creator's also being cheeky. In fact, more cheeky than Classic. Classic just did a silly little pylon hiding away. Didn't even use it. Then he goes into a sentry. He's going macro, baby. Creator's the one that is potentially being aggressive, but he also has on sentries, so I take it back. Look, he's just scouting for the pylon, actually. With the double stalker opener and the probe going the direction that it was, I do not regret my call that he was going to be aggressive. But, nope, 2 sentries on the way, definitely not being aggressive. He will not find the pylon, or did this probe find the pylon? Just barely not. So he is still a little panicky. What's coming, what's on the way, what's coming on the way. Come on. Not so panicky as to build a shield battery, but I guess he did see his opponent's opener, which would mean no Stargate. Stalker Sentry. Pretty difficult to afford a Stargate after that. And everything comes down to be quite even, in fact. So no one being overly aggressive. Not living up to the Korean Protoss name. Classic fakes an Oracle, which I do enjoy. I do think this is a good move. He was not fully, totally scouted, so that could have freaked Creator out. Didn't really. And Creator just goes for a regular old Phoenix Scout. Twilight Council to Twilight Council. Another, I mean, why not hallucinate the Oracle? It actually is no difference, other than just the mind games. and the real indicator of true macro intentions is in fact the forge. I suppose there are fake forges, I don't doubt that, but for the most part, if the PvP goes to 2-base Twilight Council v Twilight Council, whoever gets a forge really is saying, I'm going to macro. I would say actually the faster forge on 2 bases isn't even that popular anymore. Not because people aren't macroing, but people opt to go for a faster third. They might still end up having a faster forge, but they emphasize the 3rd base first. So Creator is doing more of what I think a lot of Protoss players do. And Classic is actually playing a little more conservatively. So he's getting a slower 3rd base, but he's getting a faster upgrade, and that's, you know, pretty safe. He's also getting a very fast robo because he doesn't know what Creator's planning. I mean, Creator could be going for an oddly timed Dark Shrine, one of those just getting the 3 base, kind of sneaking in there. And that does put Classic behind in terms of the Nexus. In fact, pretty far behind. There we go. All right. It's not that far behind, but I was getting concerned. And it does probably put him behind on the Stalker count. Yes, indeed, he's down by 4. So Creator has the opportunity to go across the map and cancel this Nexus. Classic needs to get the shield battery up to hold on to it, which it looks like it will be up. Even then, it's a little light in the Stalker count. It's a little worrisome. Classic opted for 2 Adepts instead of potentially 2 more Stalkers, which might be worth it. And is definitely worth it, actually. Classic's Adepts killing probes, drawing the army back, so Classic is going to get his 3rd Nexus. Again, not that far behind his opponent, with a better upgrade, and be totally safe in doing so. You know, he saw the army move back, so Classic's probably like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I got this game. Whereas if a Creator had not taken some damage, had been able to engage, there'd be a little bit of a struggle over here, and then possibly a much later Nexus if it was canceled. Now, I think time has gone too far. You know, Creator's not going to find the same opening that he would have 30 seconds ago. As the shield battery's done, the Stalker count's much more similar. And Classic, well, actually went for 2 Observers. If you do go for that faster robo, you do usually bother to get an Immortal, and in fact, often go up to 3. Not that you have to, it just seems to be that's what some people do. But actually, Creator goes in for his own double Adept Harass, kills a few more probes than Classic did. And Creator does hold on to a 6-worker lead, but there is one thing that Creator never got in all of his PvP, everything that I've been talking about. One thing he never got, a Forge. He's going to be significantly behind in the upgrades. If he's only 1 attack upgrade behind, but he's got this better economy and hits with an actual attack when you charge finishes, for instance, then I think he still has a shot. But if Creator just plays this weirdly passive defensive game because, I don't know, he's not confident, I mean, then that +2 will eventually kick in. He'll be 2 upgrades behind. That'd be insane. So Creator absolutely eyeing an attack. Doesn't grab his additional gases. Not that Classic is either, but definitely not teching up. Definitely not getting a Forge. And this Observer is going to, fortunately, see the Warp Prism, I believe. So, again, those gases aren't necessarily a big reveal, but a Warp Prism is a huge reveal. And if Classic was paying attention, he now knows an attack is underway. Probably one that's going to consist of many and many Zealots. So the Immortal's not going to be super impressive, but a shield battery overcharge is always impressive. And actually, Classic managed to fit in that Templar Archive, so he will have 1 Archon. That will help so much against the Zealot-heavy style that Creator has chosen here. Now, Creator does manage to get some Zealots into the natural, already taking down 1 of those shield batteries, plus maybe going after the probes. So Classic could still be in trouble. A couple of force fields trying to help out, but overall, not really doing a whole lot for Creator there. A blink forward from Classic seems maybe a little bit aggressive, but maybe not. I love the Hallucinate Archon. Does get popped fairly quickly, and the real Archon also gets popped prior to going back to that shield battery. Creator's positioning the attack into the natural might just end up being a little bit too awkward for poor Classic. Now the Zealots are gone, however, and the Immortal, Big Daddy Immortal, is going to be excellent in the situation. His shield got popped, but then it couldn't be sniped. So the Immortal adds a ton of extra damage, very important damage, does go back to the shield body overcharge, and Classic will hold on to the army. He is losing probes. No mining in the natural, but that +2 is finished up at some point as well. 2 Immortals helping out too, and Creator's army is looking more and more vulnerable. A lot of the Stalkers going down. Those are Classic's charge lots helping out. And Creator is not going to be winning right here, right now, and has not done enough damage to make up for the severe upgrade difference. Creator is not the type of player to tap out, even though this really is quite a bad scenario for him. And so we'll see if he can make the comeback happen. But if he had killed something like 30 probes, then there's a real question mark. What is going to win, the army or the economy? He killed 12, so while Classic's economy is a little bit worse, not by an extreme measure, and he just found the Warp Prism, so Creator had no ability to buy time, and that's when he taps out. GG.
Warning. Philanthropist programs detected in Comzone.
In the top left, we do have Creator. And on the bottom right, it is Classic. Creator on his last life in the GSL. If he loses here, he has to wait for quite a few months for the second GSL of the year. Unfortunately, there's just not much on the line anymore, but thanks to the community, there's a lot more on the line than there was when it was first announced. If you go to patreon.com/GSL, you can get the player interviews, you can get to the replays, as well as some other stuff that I'm not clear on, but you know, you can get stuff. And most importantly, you can support these players. The Patreon's money goes all into the prize pool of GSL. So, goes to the right stuff, you know? So it's a little bit more, but even still, even after getting that Patreon up to, I think, 12K a month is what it's at right now, it still is not as much of a prize pool as when Blizzard was backing it. But Blizzard has abandoned us like many of their children. And they're focusing on a very odd child indeed. The Overwatch League is a weird investment, but it's one they've stuck to, man. It's one they've stood by, even after all of the weird shit that's gone down. Even after all the terrible decision-making. It's like you're the child that keeps their head down and does fairly well, you know, not necessarily knocking it out of the park, but, you know, you're doing okay. And then your younger brother, the golden child, proceeds to get in trouble at school and steal stuff, and no one really seems to think it has a future, and it still gets all of the money and all of the love and attention. It's great. I hope it doesn't get too real for some people out there. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. But we have siblings. We have siblings that, you know, initially we were kind of the ones that were like left behind a little bit. You're like, Papa Blizzard, can you help us? And they're like, not so much. And you're like, oh, that's kind of sad. But then Heroes of the Storm, you know, the first golden child, cut off. And we're like, oh, okay, you're with us now. Poor unfortunate soul. You're even worse than us, actually. We feel a little bad for you. Oh, boy. So, you know, we give them, like, an allowance just to help them out. We feel bad. And then Hearthstone is like, hey, I'm a good esport. And Blizzard was like, are you, though? Doesn't cut them off, forces them into a terrible boarding school in Europe and doesn't check up on them. And then they come back from Europe and they're like, can we have something? And they're like, oh, no. They literally forced Hearthstone on the YouTube and then proceeded to not advertise the YouTube Hearthstone at all. And now Hearthstone goes back to Twitch and Blizzard's like, who? Who are you? Are you one of my child? Like, So Hearthstone's with us too. So we just have like a little group, you know, of sad children. I love it. Company. Misery loves company. Classic is going to go for a Dark Shrine, guys. He did delay his Nexus, but it was also delayed. His creator tried to delay it, so Classic kind of using this to his advantage a little bit. Creator couldn't blame him for adding on a tech building, the Twilight Council, a bit faster, because his Nexus was delayed. But he could blame him for trying to sneak in a Dark Shrine. Creator doesn't know it, and Classic was capable of blocking out this Probe Scout. It looks like there is a bigger scuffle than Creator wanted on the front lines. Said to hallucinate units. The shield battery wasn't done. He was a little shy on attacking units. Deals with it. Okay, good deal. What he's not going to deal with is the Dark Shrine, potentially. That Robo is finishing from Creator, who really is in the dark. He doesn't know what's going on, so he is playing very, very safe. Whoa. I didn't know this was an option. I thought I'd have to have 2 replays. Whoa, man. technology, yo. Anyways, back to the matter at hand. The Dark Shrine. Unfortunately for a creator, because he doesn't know what he's up against, he could be thinking this is a one base, or well, not a one base, he knows what the Nexus. Well, he could be thinking that it's more aggressive. So he's gonna get an Immortal first. That's not what he needs! He needs an Observer! No, he's gonna go into an Immortal and a Warp Prism. Why is he going for a Warp Prism? That is so freaking dangerous. It's not even important right now. He has a faster Nexus. Why is he going aggressive? I mean, if this wasn't a Dark Templar build, the Blink is almost done for Classic, you know? And Blink's really good at buying time. So it's really uncommon for the robo-defensive player to suddenly just say, okay, I'm going to be aggressive. And in this case, it's just absolutely devastating. Maybe it would have worked against someone not going for Dark Templars. Maybe. There's a possibility for sure. It's a bit dangerous to do. But then to not even consider the Dark Shrine option, exceptionally dangerous. Creator does have an Observer now. Did stall out that Warp Prism, so he reacted about as well as he could, but still lost probes in a very even match. Classic's Nexus was behind, but his probe count wasn't that far behind. DTs make up for it, and now Classic can move on into kind of a normal PvP now. And I would say Classic has the better situation. Not just because of the economy, which is much better than Creators right now, but also because of Blink. Blink is going to finish up. Gateway's going to finish up. Nexus comes down for Classic. That's a little sketch. So that's going to be canceled, and it's going to be a little bit of base trade. But Creator has the ability to make an Archon. Although this one's going to find... This is actually really awkward. I think if Classic was totally defensive, he's really quite good. Archon plus Blink Stalkers and Pro Pools even is actually very effective against the army Creator showing right now. Instead, it gets a little awkward. Shield Battery does help out, though. That Archon lasted longer than you would have hoped for. Immortal's going to get targeted down. The Pro Pool is just super effective. The Pro Pool is fantastic here. Only now losing some of those probes. The Warp Prism is coming in way too late to support the army. That would have been really helpful. A Warp Prism would have been really helpful. Microing those units would have given Creator's army a little bit more spice. But without the micro, the probe surround was, well, the best use of probes you will ever see. Classic, and managing to avoid being surrounded by probes because he has Blink. So, for Creator, he's gonna have to tap out, loses the elimination match 0-2, and has to wait months before the next GSL. I'm certain we'll see him in some of the international tournaments as well as online, but it is sad. Creator, it's easy guy to cheer for, but it's going to be Classic who moves on to face INnoVation in the Determinator, the Decider. There we go, the Decider match. Another TVP coming up. It is the Decider match of GSL RO16 Group D. In the top left of Gresvan, it is INnoVation. In the bottom right, we have the Red Protoss Classic. So, it's a classic matchup where I hope we get to see a lot of innovation. Seriously, though, these guys face each other a lot back in the day, so the fact that both of them are back after their military service is it's pretty nice. I like it. Classic is longer back from his military. Is that how you would say that? He's been back for longer? INnoVation is really quite fresh off the military, man. But as I've always tried to explain, the military, depending on what job you have, there are more or less opportunities to play video games. So people actually desire office jobs in the military because it actually does give them more time to, well, to sneak in some video games. But they also do have breaks. Like, they're allowed to go back for like a week at a time or something like that and go visit family and do whatever. So you would even see at times some of the guys stream those periods. Like, Beyond made sure to stream whenever he had open time to do so. And if you don't know anything about the Korean military, it is about an 18-month service. It used to be much longer, and they've decreased it over the years. And, you know, somewhat like militaries of the world overall, right? You do have, how to say this? You do have jobs fitted better for some people. So, for instance, desk jobs might be given to people who are a little more out of shape. And so, one would not be surprised to hear, I would hope, that there are some people who do game the system. They do try and gain weight and get unhealthier to get such jobs. I'm not saying that either one of these guys did it, by the way. Like, that's an unfortunate coincidence. I'm just explaining this while covering these guys. I think these guys did not have desk jobs, but I have no idea. But it is definitely a thing, you know? It's, there's a lot of discussion around the whole military requirement to begin with, and then on top of that, all the neat little details that come with something compulsory, right? It's always fun. These guys are now done with it. They're done for, well, they're actually not done for life. They do have to go back for, I think, 2-week training every so many years, which is interesting, but it's usually at a local military camp, and it's not that big of a deal. Anyways, I explained a lot about the military because these two guys are coming off the back of military. Classic has been back for like a year. INnoVation, literally fresh. This is his first GSL since he's come back, and he's looked solid. I think we all can agree that solid is a good term so far. He did not look very good against Bunny, to be fair, but he looked okay versus Creator. And now he faces Classic. That is how that went down, right? Yes. Now, Classic should be playing, I think, a more standard. Weirdly enough, Creator went for the DT Blink build, but it's Classic who did it in that BlizzCon. And now we have Classic in a PvT. But I don't think he's going to do it versus a Terran. So I think this will look more like a macro game overall anyways, and certainly with INnoVation going for a 3cc build, it definitely will be a macro game for him. Classic's going into a Phoenix opener, which really does not support any type of all-in. So this is a really ideal situation for INnoVation, even as he struggles to defend an Adept. It's fine. He doesn't know his opponent's going for it. He will eventually find out with the Reaper, and he's going to do a little fist pump. Just kidding, he has no emotions. He will compute it and say, good. The Phoenix reveals itself, even without the... We'll get around to it eventually. And so, yeah, again, like, this is really good. INnoVation should be very happy with the build order choice right now. 3cc can't be punished by the Phoenix. Unlikely the Phoenix will kill enough SCVs to make up for it. And INnoVation got away with the greediest 3cc possible, since he didn't get a factory. The factory at least safeguards you to a certain extent. You could argue you could defend a 4-gate if you get a factory, which we did see yesterday, actually. Clem 3cc and still defended a 4-gate. But only barracks? You have a low supply of not great units for a decent amount of time. If you were being 4-gated, which is just the go-to kind of mid-game all-in, it could be troublesome. You know, you imagine soccer's building right now and blinking and you'd be dead. Fortunately, it's not what INnoVation's up against. Classic, now knowing it's a 3cc build, is the opposite of fist pumping, shouting at his computer and slamming his desk, because he really is in a very difficult spot. As much as he's going to try to move on and catch up to the 3cc, there's only so much you can do when you've already done your default build. You went to the Phoenix, you went to your 4 gases, you're going into Colossus, and then you get your third base up. It's just not a great situation for the Protoss. Not game over, but just... it's a bit sour. You know it's not going to be very fun. I'm not sure what the pause was for. Could be lag. I guess one thing I haven't really discussed is that this GSL season is all online up into the semifinals and finals, which are played on the same day. Then you'll be able to attend the GSL and go to the studio, which is really quite sad because I know a lot of... like, they get a decent crowd, I would say, as far as a, 2 times a week show. There'd be consistently 15 to 25 people, I suppose. And a lot of them would create friendships around going to GSL. But when you do consider how many people have to be hired for just 15 to 25 people who don't pay, there aren't any tickets, yeah, it does make sense to cut it, doesn't it? You no longer need a guy controlling the camera to get those zoom-ins, you know? As much as we love that person for doing their job. You don't need it. So that is a bit different. I don't think these players are particularly fazed by the change-up, though. But lag could be a factor. INnoVation did not see this push-out coming. I kind of like it. I like the idea for Classic. Unfortunately, I just think it might... well, hold on. INnoVation stims into Colossus. Oh, no. Medivacs do pop out, but that was... he thought he was chasing down Stalkers and an Immortal, man, not running into 2 Colossus. So this is still going to be really sketchy, so I'm back to liking it. The thing is, if INnoVation saw this coming, he would not have stimmed, and then he would have pulled us back, and he would have gotten a better concave, and so on and so forth. But it's a little bit awkward because he didn't realize. Going back to my initial point, I do think INnoVation has a very good army. So as much as Classic is doing something very odd and trying to take advantage of INnoVation just not realizing what was going on, I don't know. Marauders are pretty good. Good micros so far. Medevac still healing, more popping out, but 14 SCVs lose their lives in the attempt to break. And that command center is under a lot of trouble as well. Now, Classic does not have that superior of an economy. So if this third CC can get back on location, it'd be a different story. One Colossus is going to get gunned down. Losing 2 Marauders for that, I believe. Command center will just barely live. And Classic still has not won the game. I know this looks like a lot of damage, but INnoVation holding on to his Marauders is going to be able to hold onto this game. Ugh. He's also now going to have 2 upgrades over his opponent. A couple more Marauders, hopefully a couple more Medevacs, or at least some more juice in the Medevacs. He's a bit more hold up, though, in his natural. And 2 Colossus are back on the front lines. Really got to give some kudos to Classic for doing this. It would have been, I don't know about all too easy, but it would have been the choice of many other Protosses to say, okay, it sucks that I want to pick it to 3cc. Let me go ahead and try and defend perfectly. But defending would have been quite a tough job. Instead, choosing to sneak in an attack and clearly catch INnoVation off guard when INnoVation might still not have gained all the investment back from his third CC when he's still building a little bit. That timing really could have worked out. They could have won the game. Unfortunately, if it doesn't, INnoVation, might still be getting all of that investment paying off now. His army is decent. It's well upgraded. It's got Ghosts and Vikings at this point. So the third CC not mining and now again not mining is absolutely something Classic needs. But it's not over. And in fact, INnoVation is going to pull the SCVs. I think that's a really good call. He is still facing a mostly Colossus player. Charge Lot's also going to waste shots on the SCVs. That is the ideal. But this one disruptor could change everything. I'm looking at this disruptor, as is INnoVation. Second disruptor is here now. I don't know, man. Shield batteries aren't done. First disruptor did not get any type of shot. Phoenix are trying to buy the shots for the Colossus, but they go down. Shield battery overcharge trying to save the lives of every single Protoss unit. One disruptor did pop off. That is a lot of dead Terran units, but the Colossus are going to fall as well. The EMPs have already been slapped down. They did not kill the Archons. SCVs went down. Archon's still alive. Stalker's still alive. One more disruptor shots. Kills Zealots, actually. The best shot ever. But it looks like INnoVation might just be out of steam. Oh, did not kill a disruptor fast enough. And that is that. Classic wins game number 1. Woof. His idea to attack in when he did really did help his chances in this game. And then getting disruptors was also a good call. Even though that first one didn't hit, the second one did. GG's. Game number 2 will be on Ancient Cistern. In the top right, it is INnoVation. Bottom left, Classic. INnoVation got one of the better openers that you possibly could. Greediest 3cc against a Phoenix opener. Phoenix can't really do a whole lot of damage to make up for it. Classic, though, kind of turning the expectations around, which is that the Protoss has to basically eat the food that they're given and be happy with it, Your parents slap down a big bowl of broccoli in front of you, and they're like, well, if you don't eat this, you starve. You're like, all right. It's kind of what the Protoss are expected to do at that point. But Classic, a very picky eater, slapped that bowl of broccoli away, punched the parents in the face, and then somehow also survived a duel between him and his parents somehow. Because that SCV pool was quite scary. And I think if INnoVation had done it faster, once his third CC was picked up the first time, once Classic left, maybe if he had just SCV pulled there, the Disruptor isn't out, the shield batteries definitely aren't done, and maybe there's an opportunity. But INnoVation was clearly thinking I can still recover macro-wise, so he put it back down, and then Zealots went on it, and then it was an SCV pool, so it really was very awkward. Kudos to Classic for turning it around, going for the aggression, making it a game that he could control. And now game 2 means that INnoVation is on his last life to move into the round of 8s. As far as expectations, well, INnoVation certainly is a powerful household name in StarCraft 2. He is fresh off of military, so he's not supposed to be the person who goes to the round of 8s compared to the likes of Classic and Creator, and Bunny, who, of course, actually have been playing StarCraft 2 the last at least year and a half, because Classic is he's also come back. Thank you, Bahamut, for the raid. So INnoVation gonna go for a factory expand. His 3cc build, I mean, I think did work out, but he had no idea he was getting proxy gated. He scouts that proxy gate. He scouts the army moving suspiciously. Perhaps if he even scouts the third base lacking gases, something like that, right? If he has any knowledge that he's being attacked, that would have looked very, very different. But still gonna change it up completely, and I do think it's very risky to just 3cc versus Protoss every single game. But if he did, he would have gotten away with it. Classic is once again going into Stargates, possibly back into the Phoenix. We'll see in a moment. Classic is no stranger to the Adept Oracle pressure, though, which INnoVation might be a little more of a stranger to. I mean, it certainly existed before he went to the military, but I don't know. When I think about it, I actually think of Classic's return from the military, he was trying to be really aggressive, because he was generally known as an aggressive dude. And that would have been when INnoVation was in the military, so I don't know. It's not that, though, so doesn't matter. Moving on. It is Phoenix. And INnoVation is not going to have a very good time if he goes into a Widowmine drop. He's going into a Hellion drop. Okay. He could have a good time. I never see this build lose. Just kidding. It is fairly effective, though, and so far it is unscouted. Classic's Phoenix. It's all about where they are. Do they have an inkling as to where the medevac will be headed? Is it a medevac? Just kidding, it's no medevac. Well, medevacs are much better. Well, now the Hellions are only ever going to enter into the natural. 2 Adepts will start firing upon them. Phoenix will lift 2 out of the equation, and that should be good. It should be fine. It does have to do with some of the Adepts being in place coincidentally, sure, but yeah. 1 lift up is all that necessary, but he actually doesn't have a lift off, so that is a bit more awkward. The Adepts did not cull the Hellion numbers down to 2. They culled them down to 3, and that's still 1 shot at the probe. Now finally finding them and taking them down. 9 probes go down. And I never see that build lose. That was effective enough. That was initially not going to look very effective, and then it was. Adept numbers are decent, and they're looking to counterattack, but a bunker is on the way. INnoVation also noticed, hey, that's a decent amount of army, and I don't have a whole lot. Classic, yeah, using his Reapers to pick up the... using his Phoenix to pick up the Reapers would possibly regret that, because that really could have been one of the most perfect Hellion defenses if 1 Phoenix had a lift. You win some, you lose some, and in this case, INnoVation just lost some. The Adepts are allowed into the main base, so at the very least, they're going to cause a lot of chaos. This is already worth the counterattack, and, well, killing SEVs. Not going to be allowed out, but that's kind of okay. They could maybe still trade a little bit with the Marines. Not as much. Cyclones, 2 of them helping out a lot. Phoenix take their opportunity while the Cyclones are distracted, however, to pick off an SEV, and now picking off a fresh mule. Ouch. INnoVation, all in a blink of an eye. Hold on, that was weird. Okay, well, this is getting weird because there is a Raven harassing. Oh, okay. I was gonna say in the blink of an eye is lost out on his worker lead, but then the Raven helps. Kills a sentry as well. 1 Phoenix didn't get recalled and was lost, and, well, neither one of these guys playing a particularly pretty game. But as the dust settles, where are we at? Classic, only ahead by 5 workers, only still on 2 bases. Doesn't feel super good. INnoVation... getting his production, getting his 3rd CC finish actually feels a lot better. His stim isn't exactly super quick, but it is on the way. Medevacs could time up with that rather nicely. INnoVation did lose his Raven, though. I mean, that was suicidal, wasn't it? So, I mean, I think the game goes on. INnoVation's in a favorable spot, especially if he gets a cancel on this Nexus. There's no shield battery, and that lock on the Immortal is really scary. I don't think INnoVation can actually win with this. There was certainly some potential If there was no pylon for warp-ins, I think INnoVation could have caused a lot more trouble, but at the very least, 2 Stalkers got warped in, and the Colossus was close to finishing, so INnoVation probably would have overstayed his welcome if he had tried to make a move there. Scan just took out the Observer, I assume. Stim's still not done. Combat Shield's definitely not done. All Marines so far, only a couple Marauders now being pumped out. Classic is going to once again move out at a rather interesting timing, but trying to take advantage of his Colossus technology. That's what he did last game. Much later on in the game. A lot more units, but still. And I don't mind it, but you do have to be really careful. I mean, this is a comically low number of units. They aren't protecting each other very much. So unless you find INnoVation literally holed up behind a bunker in his own Sim City, that one Colossus would have a lot to do. Would have a big job. So pulling back, probably the safer option. +1 attack starts up for Classic alongside his charge. Range for the Colossus almost done. INnoVation now has his 3cc set up, and while he did take his own SCV losses, I mean, how much was killed for both players? 11 to 13 kills on the workers. He's only down by 6 workers. So as his mules get dropped, well, and then picked up, INnoVation's economy should be a little bit better. No, not really, actually. He's missing that 3rd mule, so it's about even. But his army supply and his army type is going to be rather good. Classic has the advantage of his Colossus beams. And while that is good, that's also kind of it. There's not a lot accompanying these units. And if INnoVation grabs 2 more Medivacs and 4 more Marauders, they could get a concave on here. Unfortunately, once again, not knowing the army was moving out, loses a Cyclone that would have helped out. Scan reveals Classic moving away once again, and I'm totally fine with Classic moving away every time. I think Classic, if he was just thinking, oh, I can win here, like I can move in, like you're gonna die anyways, I mean, he'd be making a big mistake. But just poking and leaving, I think it's actually kind of fine. His worker count still isn't the most impressive for a Protoss player, but at least his technology is now, I think, better. You know, he's not only relying on those Colossus, he has some Archons about to be warped in, charge, and his upgrade about to finish. Double Robo for what I'm certain is going to be some Disruptor additions, and INnoVation does have a good army. Could maybe be doing some moves, moving out, but he is not. He's staying at home, getting a little supply blocked as well. Not my INnoVation, hashtag it. But he is missing probably one of the biggest opportunities for him, because he did have a faster 3rd CC. You know, he did have a good setup on the economy, a little low on the army, which is something that Classic was looking to take advantage of. Couldn't, but it was okay. And now INnoVation, you've got the army from the opener. If you could use it somehow, it'd be pretty good. But now the Disruptors are on the way. INnoVation still hasn't really looked to be aggressive. And INnoVation supply still looks fine. I am quite worried about those Disruptors. Observer seeing all of the movement of the Terran army is extremely helpful. It's going to see the army pair up back together, so you know there's going to be one big attack over to the left side. Oh, maybe he heard the unsiege of the Observer? That scan was coincidentally timed. Oh. Okay, he didn't hear that one. He's trying to find the army out of position, but, you know, scan revealed Classic moving perfectly into position with his entire army, so INnoVation knows he's being watched. He just can't exactly know where or how. Zealots going into the 3rd base are not going to be defended. Yes, they are. No, actually, just not enough bio units, even with the upgrades. Causing a bit more headache than INnoVation was hoping for. INnoVation still running into the brick wall of Classic. Classic always has all of his army together waiting for INnoVation. So he's not finding him out of position like he was hoping. And now Classic even getting a little bold here, as the Zealots continue to ransack INnoVation's home base. Oh, Warp Prism, you so silly. You silly. And this is going to force INnoVation to all in, or just tap out. INnoVation, not a stranger to rather lame tap-outs, to be honest. Even though he's known as a robot, I think we all remember some of INnoVation's... rage, quite's a bit of a strong word, but clearly getting fed up with Protoss or Zerg and tapping out. Yeah, I think I'm personally familiar with that. I do remember quite a few games. And this one feels like it would not be entirely unwarranted. If INnoVation just shook his head, shrugged, and tapped out, I'd kind of agree with it. It is not going to be a very pretty game. He lost so much economy that even though his army stayed relatively intact, how do you actually win the game right here, right now, against a defensive Protoss player with shield batteries and disruptors? That's almost endless time buying. So what are you going to do? Repair your SCVs? He's not even trying. He's not even trying to build more SCVs. And that's, I mean, why even try? INnoVation gonna go for the last engagements, which again is impossible. It's actually impossible. Look how many disruptors there are, for the love of God. There's 8 disruptors. So far, they're not getting the best hits. That one was all right, but Terran army getting back into a corner. Rip, rip, and more rip. Rest in pepperoni. INnoVation getting smacked a little bit in that particular PvT. Classic going to join Bunny, moving on into the round of 8. And INnoVation will maybe be back for the next GSL. You never know with this guy. He's like, I'm not going to play StarCraft 2. Just kidding. I'll play GSL. And I'll play Open Cups. Okay. All right, fine. I hope he still continues to get better and be back to the INnoVation that we know, but it's hard to blame them when they do move on. Or perhaps he'll be the world's best Stormgate player. GG's. Hope you guys enjoyed the cast. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you for the round of 8 in just a few days. Bye-bye.